The ring that remembers. A story of dreams, sacrifice, and second chances. The moment everything changed. The phone call came at 3:47 a.m. Dubai time. Stephanie Vaquer stared at her phone screen, her hands trembling as she saw the name Mama. At this hour, a call from Chile could only mean one thing. She had been in the middle of her training session at the gym in Dubai Sports City, preparing for the biggest match of her career, the WWE tryout that could change everything. But some things are bigger than dreams. Stephanie, es tu abuela. Her mother's voice cracked through the speaker. She's asking for you. The doctors say, maybe hours, maybe days. She keeps saying your name. The wrestling ring in front of her suddenly felt very far away. The bright lights of Dubai, the luxury towers, the promise of stardom, all of it faded as she remembered the small wooden house in Santiago, where an old woman with calloused hands and infinite love had raised her when no one else would. This is the story of how Stephanie Vaquer learned that the hardest battles aren't fought in the ring, they're fought in the heart.
Part 1. The girl who wasn't supposed to matter, Stephanie, was born in a hospital in Santiago, Chile, on a Tuesday afternoon in 1996. Her mother was 17. Her father was gone before she took her first breath. You won't amount to anything, her mother's boyfriend told her when she was 6. Girls from neighborhoods like this never do. But he didn't know about Abuela Rosa. Rosa Martinez was a woman built from steel and prayers. She had worked as a seamstress for 40 years. Her fingers bent and scarred from needle pricks, her eyes squinted from decades of threading fabric under dim lights. When Stephanie's mother struggled with addiction, Rosa didn't hesitate. She took in the little girl with wild curly hair and fierce eyes. Mi pequeña luchadora Rosa would call her, my little fighter. Every morning at 5 a.m., Rosa would wake Stephanie up with a gentle touch. They would pray together not just for blessings, but for strength. Then Rosa would make her breakfast arepas, scrambled eggs, and tea with too much sugar. Eat Mia, Rosa would insist. Strong body, strong mind, strong heart. At night, after Rosa returned from the textile factory, she would tell Stephanie stories. Not fairy tales, but real stories of her own mother who had survived poverty, of her sister who had become a teacher against all odds, of women who had refused to accept the limitations the world placed on them. We are Vaquer women, Rosa would say, holding Stephanie's small hands in her weathered ones. We fall, but we rise. We hurt, but we heal. We dream, and we fight for those dreams. When Stephanie was 12, she discovered Litra Lebro on an old television set. She watched masked wrestlers fly through the air, defying gravity and expectations. She saw women in the ring powerful, fearless, celebrated abuela. She said that night, her eyes shining, I want to do that. I want to be a wrestler. Rosa looked at her granddaughter, this skinny girl from the poor side of Santiago, this child who had every reason to give up on dreams, and she smiled. Then we train, Rosa said simply. What Rosa couldn't afford in money, she made up for in creativity. She couldn't pay for a wrestling school, but she could wake up at 4 a.m. to run with Stephanie through the streets. She couldn't buy equipment, but she could fill bags with sand and hang them for Stephanie to practice strikes. She couldn't hire a coach, but she could watch wrestling videos with Stephanie, both of them studying moves in their tiny living room. For 6 years, they did this. Rosa would work 10-hour shifts, then come home to support Stephanie's training. She sewed Stephanie's first wrestling outfit by hand, simple design, but made with love so profound it felt like armor. When Stephanie was 18, a small wrestling promotion in Santiago gave her a chance. The pay was almost nothing, $50 per match, but it was a start. Rosa was in the front row for every match, even when she had to choose between buying medicine for her arthritis and buying a ticket. She chose the ticket every time. "I can hurt tomorrow," she'd say. "Today, I watch my champion." Part 2. The road to Dubai, the wrestling world isn't kind to dreamers from nowhere. Stephanie lost more matches than she won in those early years. She was told she was too small, too inexperienced. Too Chileanas if her nationality was a limitation rather than her identity. But Rosa's voice was always louder than the critics. "We are Vaquer women. We fall, but we rise." Slowly, Stephanie improved. She trained harder than anyone else. She studied psychology and storytelling, understanding that wrestling was more than athletics, it was art, emotion, connection. She learned English and Japanese, knowing that to compete globally, she had to speak to the world. By 23, she was wrestling in Japan. By 25, in Mexico's major promotions. By 27, she had become one of the most respected female wrestlers in Latin America. Then came the call from WWE scouts. They wanted her to come to Dubai for a special international tryout. If she impressed them, she'd be signed to a contract that could change her life and Rosa's life forever. The tryout was scheduled for March 15th. Stephanie arrived in Dubai 2 weeks early to train and adjust to the time zone. Dubai mesmerized her, the Burj Khalifa touching the clouds, the gold-adorned malls, the pristine beaches. It was a world away from the dusty streets of Santiago. She stayed in a modest hotel in Dura, training at a gym that catered to professional athletes. She would FaceTime Rosa every night. "Look, abuela." Stephanie would turn her phone camera to show the Dubai skyline. "One day I'll bring you here. We'll stay in the fanciest hotel. You'll never work another day." Rosa would laugh, her face filling the screen, wrinkles deepening with joy. "I don't need fancy hotels, Mia. I just need you to be happy." But yes, she'd add with a wink, maybe one fancy dinner wouldn't hurt. 3 days before the tryout, Stephanie received that call, the one that shattered everything. Part 3. The impossible choice. Stephanie sat in her hotel room, staring at her phone for 3 hours after her mother's call. A flight back to Chile would take at least 24 hours with connections. If she left now, she would miss the tryout. We scouts didn't give second chances. Miss this opportunity, and she might never get another. But Rosa was dying. The woman who had sacrificed everything, who had believed when no one else did, who had sewn dreams into fabric and hope into hardships. She was asking for Stephanie. The Emirates airline counter-agent looked at her with sympathy. The next flight with available seats leaves in 6 hours. But Miss Vaquer, the ticket is very expensive for such short notice. I don't care about the cost, Stephanie interrupted. Book it. She called her WWE contact. His voice was professional but firm. Stephanie, I understand this is difficult, but we have 60 wrestlers trying out. We can't reschedule it. If you're not here on the 15th, we'll have to move forward with other candidates. I understand, she said quietly. Thank you for the opportunity. She hung up before he could respond. Before she could change her mind, before the weight of what she was giving up could crush her completely. On the flight back, Stephanie didn't cry. She was too numb for tears. She watched the clouds drift past the window and thought about all those mornings running with Rosa, all those nights studying wrestling tapes, all those matches where Rosa had cheered from the front row. Some things are bigger than dreams, she told herself. Some people are worth more than opportunities. But it didn't stop the part of her heart that was breaking. Part 4. The hospital room, the hospital in Santiago, smelled of disinfectant and sorrow. Rosa was in room 312, a small space with pale green walls and a single window that looked out at the city. When Stephanie walked in, her grandmother's eyes, those fierce eyes that had watched her grow, that had seen her fall and rise, lit up with recognition. Mi luchadora, Rosa whispered. She came. Stephanie took her grandmother's hand. It felt so fragile, like paper-thin glass. Of course I came, abuela. I'll always come. For 3 days, Stephanie stayed by Rosa's bedside. Her mother would visit sporadically, uncomfortable with hospitals and guilt. But Stephanie was constant. They talked about everything and nothing. Rosa would drift in and out of consciousness, but when she was awake, she wanted stories. Tell me about Dubai, Rosa would say. Tell me about the lights. So Stephanie would describe it, all the skyscrapers that seemed to touch heaven, the luxury cars, the pristine beaches. She made it sound like a fairy tale because that's what Rosa wanted to hear. On the 4th night, Rosa's breathing became labored. The doctors said it wouldn't be long. At 2 a.m., Rosa woke up with unusual clarity. She squeezed Stephanie's hand with surprising strength. Mia, I need to tell you something, Rosa said. When I was young, I had a dream too. I wanted to be a singer. Did I ever tell you that? Stephanie shook her head, tears already forming. I had a voice. Not the best, but good enough. I was offered a chance to audition for a radio show in Buenos Aires. It was small, but it was something. A start. What happened? Stephanie asked. My mother got sick, just like this. I stayed with her. She died 3 weeks later. Rosa's eyes were distant, remembering. For years I regretted it. I wondered what I could have become. But do you know what I realized? Eventually, what love is never a mistake. Choosing the people who shaped you, who believed in you, who loved you, that's never the wrong choice. My mother gave me life. Staying with her at the end, that was how I said thank you. And you, ... Rosa touched Stephanie's cheek. You did the same for me. That matters more than any stage, any ring, any spotlight. But your dream, Stephanie started. My dream changed, Rosa interrupted gently. It became you. Watching you grow, watching you fight, watching you become this magnificent woman that became my dream, and you made it come true every single day. Rosa reached under her pillow and pulled out something small. It was a ring, not expensive. Just simple silver with a tiny stone, but it had been Rosa's mother's and her mother's before that. This ring has been passed down through 4 generations of Vaquer women, Rosa said, placing it in Stephanie's palm. Women who fought, women who survived, women who loved fiercely. Now it's yours. And when you wear it, remember, the strongest thing you can do isn't winning in the ring. It's showing up for the people who showed up for you. Rosa died at sunrise, with Stephanie holding her hand and that ring pressed against her heart. Part 5. The Letter. After the funeral, Stephanie felt hollow. She returned to her small apartment in Santiago, the one she'd kept even while traveling for wrestling, and she couldn't bring herself to train. The gym felt pointless. Wrestling felt pointless. Everything felt pointless. She was sorting through Rosa's things when she found the envelope. It was addressed to her in Rosa's shaky handwriting, dated 3 weeks before Stephanie had left for Dubai. Inside was a letter. My dearest Stephanie, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. Don't be sad, Mia. I've lived a full life, made fuller by you. I know what you sacrificed. I know you gave up the WWE tryout to be with me. Your mother told me about the call, about the flight, about the opportunity you lost. But I need you to know something. You didn't lose anything. You chose something. There's a difference. Asterisk, in this life, we're all told to chase our dreams no matter what. But some things are sacred. Some bonds are eternal. You chose love over ambition, and that doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. However, your story isn't over. The WWE tryout was one door. But there are other doors, other opportunities. The universe rewards those who honor their values. I've saved money for 30 years, every extra peso from my seamstress work. Not much, but it's yours. Use it to train, to travel, to keep fighting for your dream. And when you win, not if, but when, dedicate that victory to all the women who came before you. To your great-grandmother who couldn't read but taught us dignity. To my mother, who scrubbed floors but held her head high. To me, who sewed clothes but dreamed of watching you fly. Wear the ring, Mia. Let it remind you that you come from warriors. With all my love, Abuela Rosa Pitt. The savings account number is at the bottom. The password is your birthday. Go to Dubai again. Make them see what I've always seen, a champion. Part 6. The return. It took Stephanie 2 months to find herself again. She trained harder than ever, but with a different purpose now. She wasn't running from grief, she was running toward something. Every morning she wore Rosa's ring. Every night she reread that letter. She used Rosa's savings $23,000, an impossible amount for a seamstress to save to hire a proper coach, to improve her technique, to create a new wrestling persona that honored her roots. She returned to the independent circuit, but this time she was different. Her matches had a depth they'd never had before. She wasn't just performing moves, she was telling stories of sacrifice, of loss, of the women who fought in silence so others could fight in the light. Crowds noticed. Promoters noticed. And eventually, WWE noticed again. 8 months after Rosa died, Stephanie received another email. "We have an upcoming international talent showcase in Dubai. Based on your recent work and strong recommendations from our scouts, we'd like to offer you another opportunity to try out. Are you interested?" Stephanie stared at the email for a long time. Then she looked at the ring on her finger. "Okay, abuela," she whispered. "Let's do this. Together." Part 7. The Second Chance Dubai looked different the second time. Stephanie arrived 3 weeks before the showcase, but not to just train. She spent time exploring the city, with new eyes visiting the Jumeirah Mosque, walking through the spice souk in Deira, watching the sunset from the Dubai Marina. She thought about Rosa constantly. She imagined her grandmother here, marveling at the architecture, laughing at the extravagance, insisting they try every type of food. The night before the showcase, Stephanie couldn't sleep. She stood on her hotel balcony, looking out at the illuminated Burj Khalifa, and she felt Rosa's presence like a warm hand on her shoulder. "I miss you," she said to the night sky. "I miss you so much it hurts. But I understand now. You taught me that strength is unjust about never falling it, as about knowing what you willing to fall for." The showcase was held in a state-of-the-art training facility. 60 wrestlers from around the world, from Japan, Mexico, India, the UK, Australia, and beyond, all competing for 5 contract spots. Stephanie was nervous, but she channeled it. When her turn came, she stepped into the ring wearing gear she'd designed herself, black and silver, with a small rose embroidered over her heart rose's flower, Rosa's name. She didn't just wrestle that day, she performed. Every move told a story. Every expression conveyed emotion. She made the audience feel her journey without saying a word. When she finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then, applause. The head WWE scout, a stern woman named Jennifer Morrison, approached her afterward. "Stephanie Vaquer," she said, "that was ... remarkable. You wrestle like someone who has something to prove but nothing to lose." Stephanie touched the ring on her finger. "I wrestle for someone who believed in me when no one else did," she said simply. Jennifer smiled. "We'll be in touch soon." Part 8. The call that changed everything. 2 weeks after returning to Chile, Stephanie received the call. "Stephanie, this is Jennifer Morrison from WWE. We'd like to offer you a developmental contract with WWE NXT, pending medical clearance and visa processing. We'd like you to start training at the Performance Center within 60 days. Stephanie's knees buckled. She sat down hard on her apartment floor. Ms. Vaquer, are you there? Yes, Stephanie managed. Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Thank you so much. You earned it, Jennifer said warmly. Your talent is undeniable, but more than that, you have something most wrestlers spend their entire careers searching for: authenticity. We want that in WWE. After the call ended, Stephanie sat in silence for 10 minutes. Then she went to the small altar she'd created in her apartment, a photo of Rosa, a candle, and the envelope containing that final letter. "We did it, Abuela," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "We actually did it." Epilogue: the ring that remembers. Today, Stephanie Vaquer is living in Orlando, Florida, training at the WWE Performance Center. She's scheduled to debut on NXT television in 3 months, but before every training session, before every practice match, before every big moment, she touches the silver ring on her finger. It's not magical. It doesn't give her superpowers or guarantee success, but it reminds her of where she comes from. It reminds her of the woman who woke up at 4 a.m. to run with a dreaming child. It reminds her of the seamstress who chose love over comfort, sacrifice over ease, faith over doubt. Last week, Stephanie received her first paycheck from WWE. It was more money than Rosa had made in 6 months of factory work. She donated half of it to a youth wrestling program in Santiago, specifically for girls from low-income neighborhoods who couldn't afford training. The program is called Las Luchadoras de Rosas Fighters, because Stephanie learned the most important lesson of her life. Dreams are beautiful, but the people who believe in our dreams are sacred. And sometimes the greatest victory isn't the championship you win in the ring, it's the love you honor outside of it. The end: we are Vaquer women. We fall, but we rise. We hurt, but we heal. We dream, and we fight for those dreams. Rosa Martinez, Ijo Wu Dalt Arlene Arsif, a seamstress, a grandmother, a champion maker.